Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chicago Federation of Labor's annual Women's Event. My name is Nora K. Ryan. I'm Chief of Staff, Assistant to the President for the Chicago Federation of Labor. And as you can see, I'm joined today by CFL Director of Legislation and Politics, Andrea Kluger. She and I will be co-hosting our event here today. To say that this last year has been rough, I think is a pretty big understatement. I don't think that most of us would ever have imagined that something like this would be happening in our lifetime. But here we are, living in isolation, gathering with families, friends, co-workers over Zoom, doing what we can to keep ourselves and our families safe from this terrible virus. Well, the Chicago Federation of Labor is doing what we can to help everyone get through this. And one of the things that we're doing is we're helping to distribute vaccine to union members. We've opened clinics in partnership with the City of Chicago that are geared specifically to union members who live or work in the city. By the end of today, we will have dispersed approximately 2,800 shots. This is a first of its kind vaccine site. It's for union members by union members. We have pharmacists from Jewel Osco who are members of Teamsters Local 727 and UFCW Local 881 who are the ones putting the shots into arms. We are setting up clinics at union halls, so a huge thank you to IUOE Local 399 and its president and business manager, Pat Kelly, for opening their hall to us time and time again for these clinics. Today, Andrea and I are coming to you live from Plumbers Hall, Local 130, where we're just finishing up getting the last of the shots done. So thank you also to business manager Jim Coyne for the use of the space here at Plumbers. And if you watched the news at all yesterday, you would have seen that we had a very special guest come by to see our operation live in person. Vice President Kamala Harris was so impressed by what she saw. She was proud to see that the labor movement was taking care of its own. We were honored to host her yesterday, and we look forward to running as many clinics as we can to get our members vaccinated. If you've attended our women's events in previous years, you will see that this year looks much different than anything we've done in the past. Even though we can't be together in person, we still have an incredible lineup of female leaders who are ready to discuss the challenges that women have faced in the midst of the pandemic and what we can all do to move forward together. I'd like to introduce our panelists who are here with us today. We have Carol Politz from IBEW Local 134. She is the first female business rep for construction for that local. She is also the CFL's 2001 Woman of the Year, and we are honored to have her. We have Mamie Pratt from UFCW Local 881, and she is also the president of the Chicago chapter of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. Ann Bolden is a member of Painter Sister Council 14. She is someone who has continued working throughout this past year and is ready to share her insights on how that has been going. Rashonda Williams comes from Unite Here Local 1. She worked for the Palmer House before it was shut down due to the pandemic. And we have Lori Torres, who is a member of the Chicago Teachers Union and a teacher at Monroe Elementary School in Chicago. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, who will introduce our keynote speaker, Sharita Ellens, President and CEO of Women Employed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us today. First of all, we're taking a minute to honor the women in our movement. I want to take a quick moment to recognize Nora Kay for her leadership in getting vaccine access for union members. She didn't say this in her speech, but she single-handedly is the reason that union halls across Chicago are being transformed into vaccine clinics to inoculate essential union members. I witnessed firsthand her sheer unwillingness to take no for an answer, and for that, she deserves to be recognized. Great job, Nora Kay.
Thank you.
So today I have the great pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for today's event, Sharita Ellens. Sharita is the president and CEO of Women Employed, a native Chicagoan and longtime advocate for Chicago women, youth, and families. Sharita believes that her purpose is to use her time, talent, and treasure helping the most marginalized gain self-sufficiency and full agency over their lives. Sharita carries out that purpose by leading Women Employed, an organization that for the past 4 decades has been dedicated to establishing equity for women in the workforce. As the Director of Legislation and Politics at the CFL, I see firsthand the impact that Women Employed makes in our communities under Sharita's leadership. Before joining Women Employed, Sharita led business operations and communications as Executive Vice President for Skills for Chicagoland's Future, a public-private partnership that works to close the access gap by matching businesses that have unmet hiring needs with qualified, unemployed, and underemployed job seekers. She has also served as the executive director of the South Side and Wabash YMCAs and as vice president of marketing and membership for the YMCA of Metropolitan Chicago. Shrita serves on Mayor Lightfoot's Women's Advocacy Council, on the Illinois Board of Higher Education Strategic Planning Advisory Council, as part of the Community Advisory Review Council, and is co-chair for the Paid Leave Federal Working Group of Family Values at Work, and also with the Chicago's Girls Summit. Shrita is a proud mom of a college-age daughter and holds an executive MBA from the University of Notre Dame and a Bachelor of Science degree in Speech Communications from Illinois State University. So with that, I'm very excited to welcome our next speaker, our keynote speaker, to the virtual podium, Mrs. Shrita Ellens.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea and Nora. And Nora, I want to also give you a hand clap for your efforts in getting these centers turned into vaccine centers, because it's so important that everyone gets back. So hopefully we can take care of that. And thank you to the Chicago Federation of Labor for inviting me to your annual Women's Luncheon. It's an honor to be here, and I look forward to hearing from the dynamic panel in a bit. I had a chance to meet them yesterday, and these women are truly amazing. For those of you that do not know more about Women Employed, we are an almost 50-year-old advocacy organization, as Andrea mentioned, that is working to improve the economic status of women, remove barriers to equity, and close the wealth gap at the intersection of race and gender. Since 1973, we have been involved in nearly every major advance for working women, from helping draft the rules that define sexual harassment as illegal sex discrimination, to advocating for the Family Medical and Leave Act, to securing financial aid and building career pathways for low-paid women. Much of that work could not have happened without the partnership of unions. And just the last few years, we have worked with unions to win paid sick time in Chicago and Cook County, to raise the minimum wage in Chicago and statewide, and to secure a fair and predictable work week for Chicago workers. Right now, we're working with unions to pass paid sick time statewide and give all hotel workers who have lost their jobs in this pandemic the right to come back to work when hotels reopen. We've marched with brave McDonald's workers striking to protest sexual harassment, and we've recently joined with our partners at One Fair Wage to eliminate the sub-minimum wage statewide. We love the work of unions, and we stand strong with you in your fight to improve workplaces for your members and, quite frankly, for all of us. It's no secret that the last year has been brutal for American workers, and especially for women. But the impacts of this pandemic on Black and Brown women have been startling. Women lost more than 5 million jobs in 2020, of which 42% were women of color. All of the 140,000 jobs lost in December alone were all held by women, mostly women of color. According to the latest jobs report, the national unemployment rate is currently at 6.2%, but the unemployment rate for Black women is nearly 9%, and for Latinas, it's 8.5%. Black and Latinx women are bearing the brunt of pandemic job losses because of our country's history of gender and racial discrimination. Historically, women's work has been low paid in industries like retail and hospitality, childcare, and food services, the same industries that have seen the most job losses during this pandemic. And Latinas and Black women are more likely to work in these roles than white women. Workers in the personal and laundry services, who are more likely to be Asian American women, have seen huge job losses as well. As more families have to manage virtual school for their children, the loss of childcare, and care for sick and aging relatives, it has been women who overwhelmingly carry the responsibility of caregiving. And that too has impacted our workforce participation and led to a greater number of women dialing back their hours or stepping out of the workforce completely. Women's labor force participation in this moment is the lowest it's been since 1988. In addition to suffering greater job losses, women are also more likely to be on the front lines of the pandemic, risking their health and safety and that of their families every day when they go to work. Nearly 3 in 10 Latinas are in a frontline job, but they are still paid less than white men in the same jobs. Black women make up 11% of essential workers, even though they're only 6% of the total workforce. And it shouldn't surprise any of you that families and communities need the income of women. And 73% of Illinois households with children, all parents have paying jobs. Mothers are breadwinners in 84% of Black families. We have to get the women who have lost their jobs during this pandemic back to work in meaningful family sustaining work. And in the meantime, we need to financially support them. We need unions more than ever. Dr. King said in his 1965 speech to the Illinois State AFL-CIO that labor movement was the principal force that transformed misery and despair into hope and progress. Unions have been at the forefront of so many basic workplace protections that many people take for granted, such as the minimum wage, the 40-hour work week, overtime pay, health and safety protections. And unions are critical in helping to close gender and racial wage gaps. That's because unions fight for workplace policies that raise the floor. Things like health insurance, paid family and medical leave, and greater pay transparency. And so many of these policies have outsized impacts on women and people of color, which is why we need to strengthen pathways to union jobs and to increase representation of women and women of color in union leadership. While women make up nearly half of union membership, their representation in leadership continues to lag behind. And we must do better. Labor unions, starting at the local level, must prioritize bringing more women into leadership positions. Women in a union are more than 25% more likely to have employer-provided health insurance. The gains are largest for Latinas, who are nearly 30% more likely to have health insurance if they are in a union. Union women are much more likely to have a pension plan, ensuring that they have a retirement cushion, something that so many of us truly struggle with due to the earnings deficit caused by the wage gap we experience throughout our career. Even when looking at straight up earnings, women in unions earn wages 30% higher than non-union women. Again, those gains are especially large for Latinas who see a 47% bump in pay when they belong to a union. Those increased earnings benefit not just women, but their families and communities. Those earnings put their children on better footing and help families build intergenerational wealth and narrow wealth gaps. It makes our neighborhoods, our city, and our country stronger. But to truly achieve equity for all women, we must do more. We still need to pass comprehensive paid sick time, both in Illinois and federally. And we need to make family and medical leave for all working people. We must eliminate the subminimum wage that forces many restaurant workers, most of whom are women, to tolerate sexual harassment in order to pay their bills. During COVID, restaurant workers have seen both a decrease in tips and an increase in harassment. In Illinois, hundreds of thousands of restaurant workers lost their jobs during this pandemic. 60% of all tip workers and 70% of Black tip workers said that they had trouble accessing unemployment insurance because the state said tips won't count towards calculating benefits. These are the same tips employers can count towards employee wages, which allows them to only pay 60% of the minimum wage. I guess that makes sense to someone, but it definitely doesn't make any sense to me. We must also continue to fight for protections for hotel workers who have lost their jobs, the health and home care workers who put their own health at risk every day to care for their patients. And I know many of you, including the Chicago Federation of Labor, have joined Unite Here in SEIU in those fights. Lucy Parsons said, "Never be deceived that the rich will allow you to vote away their wealth." That is what we experienced with the fight for fair tax. It's what we're seeing in Georgia and in the halls of Congress. They feel the heat. They feel a bit of their power ceding, and they will stop at nothing to prevent it. We must not stop either, and we need your partnership. Building collective power empowers women to fight the status quo, to make sure that as we build back better for us and our families, that we build back better for those in low paid roles, for those that are unrepresented and underrepresented, for Black women, for Latinas. Unions are critical to these fights. We've got big problems facing our communities in Chicago, and the people gathered today at this event know we won't fix them by ourselves, one union at a time, one advocacy organization at a time. But together, we will fight mightily, and I know we will win. Advocates in other states are fighting for the same issues we are, but they don't have the strength of labor at their side, fueling their fight. And in some of those places, the labor movement hasn't tapped into the energy of community and advocacy organizations. That's not the case here. They don't have the relationships we've built over decades. We show up for one another as true sisters and as true brothers in the struggle. We look forward to the continued fight and victory for policies and protections to help women emerge from this she session stronger than before. We are thankful to you, to our sisters and brothers in the union, for leading and joining us in this work. We stand with you, we support you, and together we are powerful and unstoppable. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the panel.
Thank you, Sharita. It's interesting to hear all of that, and, you know, kind of disturbing when we hear some of those numbers, you know, but I mean, I know that a lot of that, it's like, I know I've heard a lot of what's going on as far as women are concerned, but when you really start to break it down, I think it just kind of puts a whole nother perspective onto it. So thank you. So at this point, we're going to throw it over to Andrea to get us started on our questions for the panelists.
Great. And one quick note, as we move through the program, if you have questions for any of our panelists here today, feel free to type those into the chat. We'll have a Q&A session toward the end, and that's when we'll raise those questions. So now we'd like to turn over to our panelists to get their take. We're gonna give everybody a question to start, and then we'll move into general questions for the whole group. So we're gonna get started with our Woman of the Year, Carol Politz. Carol, you're a business agent at IBEW Local 134, which of course means that you're the first line of defense for members to reach out to with issues that arise in the workplace. So I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about what it was like to be a business agent serving essential workers throughout the course of the pandemic, from the very early days of PPE shortages to the challenges that we face currently with limited vaccine.
Okay, I'm on. Thanks, Andrea. So yes, Carol Politz, 134 rep, and as you said, kind of a little bit more on a front line. And as far as a representative, I just wanted to clarify, the IBEW does represent about 12,000 members, not just in construction. And, you know, we cover, you know, I hear about the hotel workers, you know, we have electricians at the Palmer House, we have people at Metro, we have people in manufacturing and at the corner place, you know, so it does cover a vast array. Even at the racetracks, we have IBEW members there. And And so as far as a representative, it's given me a chance to see really this a vast array of people within the IBEW. And as far as women go, certainly, we've made some good strides along our international level and at our local level in terms of creating more opportunity for women and recognizing what they've had to go through with this last pandemic. Speaking of which, it's been over a year. It doesn't seem real that it's been so long that we've been together. I hope we can be together. But on to the question in terms of, since the beginning of the pandemic and what we've had to do, our local has distributed actually masks and sanitizing, PPE for all our members and retirees included in the very beginning. And I also remember at the beginning, not that we want to look back that far, but when McCormick Place was turned in with, electricians and carpenters into a site for overflow from the hospitals, that they were expecting. Thankfully, we did not need to go that far. But as we go through, I really believe that communication has been key. Keeping everybody together and giving them pandemic updates and, quarterly reports. As a union, of course, we have not had meetings in person and not been able to meet. So that's been great to have, platforms to do that with, to keep people updated. And, from there, reaching out a little bit, we have Helping Hands, which is an organization, and also a sisters committee that was formed in 2015 that has really stepped up to the plate and been specifically giving women more and more of an opportunity. They met more for support, on a weekly basis to gather together to help each other out. So, in terms of that, we've made some progress. And, going forward, Nora K., what you've been doing with vaccination spots, we're on board with that, and we're ready to launch, ready to go with our members to get more, to get our members vaccinated as well. And we're, great that we can move in that direction. I can only say that, Sharita, what you said, unions really keep it all together. And it's good at this point in time, seeing that at the real higher levels, they're recognizing that. How important it is, from pay equity to equality of, colored and Latina and things like that. I think it's coming to the front lines, which maybe it was a result of this, maybe not, but I see that as hopeful. I see that in your voice, that we're moving from that, we're making progress, and hopefully, we'll see a new light, tomorrow. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity. I know the struggles are immense when it comes to like you said, to what women have to burden on top of the skill that they have for their work, but also for families and, caregiving and everything along those lines. So my hats are off to all of you. IBEW certainly continues to keep their apprenticeship going, the schools, the renewable energy programs that we have. People have been furloughed, people have lost their jobs, but we're moving ahead and doing what we can to hopefully break out of this. So more power to you, and we're stronger together. So thank you. Okay, Andrea.
Thank you, Carol, and congratulations on being named this year's Woman of the Year. A well-deserved honor.
Thank you for that. It's a privilege, but certainly due to a lot of people. Thank you.
And just a quick reminder one more time, if you have questions for our panelists, please type them into the chat. Next, we will turn to Mamie Pratt. Mamie, we know that communities of color have experienced higher rates of COVID-19 infections, hospitalizations, and loss of life. But of course, race and ethnicity are only risk markers for other underlying factors that affect health, including socioeconomic status, access to healthcare, and occupation. Given that as communities rebuild coming out of the pandemic, do you and the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, of which you are the new president, have specific recommendations for policymakers to address those risk factors in communities of color in order to make public health more equitable?
Thank you, Andrea. We at the Chicago chapter of Coalition of Black Trade Unionists supported the Illinois Black Caucus legislative agenda during the lame duck session involving 4 pillars, which one includes the Healthcare Reform Act. We feel having access to quality healthcare is vitally important. And then that would include quality hospitals, clinics, and mental health facilities. One thing that the pandemic has taught us is that there is a strong need for quality health care to prevent senseless deaths. We were happy to see that Governor Pritzker signed a bill to reopen Westlake Hospital here in Melrose Park, which is in the Proviso Township. This hospital has given critical care to our community for decades. We also were happy to see that the Illinois legislators had come to an agreement to maintain the opening of Mercy Hospital, which is on the south side of Chicago and is one of the first hospitals in Chicago. And then at the federal level, we support House Bill 1, the Voting Rights Act, which that expands policies that affirms Black, Brown, as well as all communities to having a level playing field, helping us to protect our democracy, as well as holding our elected officials accountable.
All right. Thank you, Mamie. We appreciate that. Next up, we have Ann Bolden. There you are. Hi, Ann. How are you?
Hey.
All right. So Ann is a member of Painters District Council 14. And as a member of the Painters, you work in a trade that Governor Pritzker deemed essential in his shelter-in-home-place executive order at the beginning of the pandemic. Given that, we want to talk a little bit about workplace safety in the wake of COVID. Since the start of the pandemic, the Trump administration refused to have OSHA implement an emergency temporary standard for workplaces continuing to operate throughout the pandemic. Last spring, the AFL-CIO filed a lawsuit calling on the Department of Labor to implement such a standard, but it was rejected by the U.S. Court of Appeals. The Biden administration has since issued an executive order directing OSHA to implement an emergency temporary standard, but most of the damage has already been done. So, Ann, we're hoping that you can talk about your experience navigating workplace safety during the pandemic and how has it changed as the pandemic has continued.
Thank you, Andrea. Hello, everybody. During this pandemic, it's been really, sorry about that. It's been really hectic and scary, especially at the beginning, because we didn't know with COVID, we didn't know anything about it. There wasn't any regulation yet. People thought that you can get it from just touching. We didn't know it was airborne. I was working at the Hilton Hotel as a painter, and people didn't take it serious. Mid-March, the word was getting out, people were dying, and people just still wasn't taking it serious. So we shut down. My last day there was March the 20th. And from that point, it was pretty bad out there in the field. I went in the field, and we had the president saying that it was a hoax and it wasn't serious, and so it was just so many people that just didn't take it serious, and that was scary. So on the job site, you had people masked, some no mask, and you had GCs that really wasn't enforcing it because they didn't believe or they thought it was like the flu. So it was pretty rough out there. I actually had 2 scares where I had to take off because I was in contact with someone who was diagnosed with COVID, and the company paid. So that was a good thing. They paid for you to be off the 4 days or until your test was back. So after that, things started getting better maybe after 4 or 5 months, like June, July, when the numbers were going up, people were dying, and someone knowing somebody else had it. And so people were taking it a little more serious. And the GCs were, and the unions, the business agents were there all the time, making sure we had sanitizers, masks, and that they were following the CDC rules. A lot of job sites were shut down because it was infested with COVID. Um, a lot of my coworkers had COVID. And I'm sorry, everybody. Dana. So I'm sorry. So things are better. It's getting better. The vaccines are happening, so things are looking a whole lot better. I mean, it was pretty scary out there. I lost people due to COVID, so it was pretty scary for me. I just had to keep talking to people about being safe. Put your mask on. If I had to go to a GC to let them know, to ask somebody to put their mask on, I just had to do what I had to do. And people are now taking it serious. And the vaccines are out, so it's a lot better. My company actually signed us up, and whoever is in our household, they even offered them the vaccine. So pretty much everybody with my company now at least has one of the vaccines. So it's a lot better. That's about it.
Thank you so much, Anne. Rashonda Williams, it's time to hear from you. So Rashonda, you've been a fierce advocate for Unite Here Local 1. You serve as a union shop steward, and you sit on the executive board of the Illinois AFL-CIO. I personally worked with you on legislation in Springfield that protects hotel workers from sexual harassment. And of course, you were on the front lines of the Chicago hotel strike in 2018, where you won year-round health care for union hotel workers. So now we fast forward to 2020, and the hotel where you have served as a longtime bartender, the Palmer House Hilton, closed back in March of 2020 and still remains closed today. So given everything that the union has accomplished over the past few years, I'm wondering if you can talk about how your experience of an organizer and advocate might allow you to see opportunities for the industry as we emerge from the pandemic.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for the mention of all the great victories that I'm extremely proud of. But there is obviously more that we as a union that we need to do. We have situations going on where people are being terminated before they're able to come back to work. This is through no fault of their own. 90% of hospitality went on furlough during the pandemic. And we have to make sure that all 90% come back to work. These people were fired, a lot of them in different hotels, and it is our responsibility. It is the responsibility of myself, my union, all my union brothers and sisters to stand in solidarity and make sure our union brothers and sisters get back to work. And once we're back to work, once everyone is back to work, we have to make sure that the employers are addressing the needs of all of the employees. We have to make sure that the vulnerable are covered, that we have proper equipment and PPE, that the companies are following the recommendations of the CDC, that everyone is treated fair and impartially. And we can only take a break once we've seen those things manifest. We also have an opportunity to make sure that people in communities where there are multi-billion-dollar businesses coming in and rebuilding, we have to make sure that we are in a position where we're speaking up for long-term residents. Some may be union members, some may not be. However, we have long-term residents in areas where multi-billion-dollar corporations are coming in, and they have not made a commitment to giving quality employment to those people in those areas. This is what unions do. This is what Unite Here does. We do this for members and non-members alike. And I'd like to say that we have a fierce team of people within our union, within Unite Here. And every day we are navigating through different systems to make sure that we are taking care of our union brothers and sisters. We stand together in solidarity. We make sure to place the phone calls, get the committees together to make sure that no one is left behind. And we are definitely paying attention to people of color and the Latino communities. These are the people that are usually left behind, and we just want to make sure that they have fair representation. That is what I represent. That is what my union stands for. And that is what our focus will be going forward. Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks, Rashonda. I have to say, I've been working with Unite Here a lot these last couple weeks, and it's so great to see what you all are doing for your members, especially during such a difficult time. So keep it up. Anything we can do, let us know.
Thank you, Nora.
Absolutely. All right. And now we've got Lori Torres. Let's see if we can, there you are. Hi, Lori. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Great. All right. So, Lori, you are a CPS teacher at Monroe Elementary School, a CTU executive board member, and the mother of 3 children who attend Chicago Public Schools. Given your perspective, both teaching in the public school system and having children who have been remote learning during the pandemic, what are the biggest challenges you believe lie ahead for public school systems across the country? Not just this year, but as we move into next year and think about the future of public education.
Thank you for that question. And thank you to all the other women who just spoke their hearts out about all the work that women in labor have taken on and all the work that still lies ahead. As a teacher and as a mom of kids in the system, there's one thing that COVID exposed in our schools, and it exposed the inequities that exist in our schools across this city. And the same is true for schools across our country. The reality that there has been a disinvestment in public education across decades has been exposed by a pandemic. We at the Chicago Teachers Union in 2019 brought some of these issues to the forefront as concerns for how our schools failed to meet the needs of kids because of the lack of services or the lack of staffing available to our students. So during this pandemic, we saw that the reality of the disinvestment, not just in our schools, but the lack of access across our city, put kids in different neighborhoods at a disadvantage, one that we knew existed. The reality of years of disinvestment and infrastructure that needs so much work to bring us up to par. As a mom, I watched my kids transition into an online space of learning, and while working myself, tried my best and still do to help them manage what that is on a day-to-day basis. Hasn't been easy, but we do what we can. Tons of grace and mercy around here. The same that I expect for my kids to get from their teachers at school and that I provide for them as well. Our students and staff at this point, as we look towards what it will be like when we open up for the rest of our district, we're going to need a lot. We're going to need those things that we fought for in 2019. We're going to need more nurses available. This pandemic showed us that that's not a wait till later. It's something we need now. We're going to need more clinicians, social workers, and counselors on day one when kids return into our buildings. The trauma our kids have endured, and not just our kids, but our staff members. Like, we all have suffered through this. And we've done our best. We took the punches, we transitions, we made those shifts with little background for many of us, but we made it work. Our kids are learning, and we need to be able to support them when they return. Let's all remember that, yes, kids are resilient, but we need to connect. And in order to connect, we have to be able to provide those things that we know are missing. Our city has done what it can to this point, and we cannot return to what normal was. We have to demand better for our kids, for our staffs, for buildings that are in need of so much. And with that, I think that we as teachers and as parents will continue to do our best to support our kids, COVID or none.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lori. I have to say, you all, I think teachers are some of the most amazing people. You know, I mean, even in normal times, teaching is so difficult, but, you know, I couldn't even imagine I know how I feel at the end of the day after being on Zoom all day, that, you know, I think having to deal with a group of students, you know, who may or may not be paying attention at any given time. So thank you to you and all the other teachers out there for everything you do. So
Thank you.
all right. So at this point in time, we're going to bring everybody back up so that we can now have more of a conversation. Andrea and I have some prepared questions that we're just going to throw out to the group. And this is more of a dialogue conversation between everybody. So, you know, feel free to jump in. We're going to start out easy for you all and, you know, just to kind of get the conversation going. So what is what's like a habit or a hobby that you've picked up that you will continue doing after this pandemic is over?
Okay, can I chime in that Anne
Absolutely.
not gonna like this, but I picked up painting. Not doing very well, so I'm gonna work on it quite a bit. Probably shouldn't have, but I'm getting a few things painted and really enjoying it. Thank you for your trade.
I have been binging on Netflix.
Nice.
And, Zoom meetings. So I don't know if Zoom meetings are going to be the norm, but those are two hobbies.
Well, let's hope not. What's the Netflix? What's your number one?
Oh my goodness, it's so many. Just off the top of my head, there was a movie called Firefly Lane about two best friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a cute one.
Awesome.
I'll jump in here. I've always loved to cook, but I found that I'm cooking more with fresh herbs. So I'm testing herbs that I never would have put in dishes, mint, in pasta, and things like that. So it's coming along. It's coming along greatly.
Nice.
I'm with you, Mamie.
And for me, can you ladies hear me?
What was that?
Oh, yep.
Okay, cool. I had a lot of feedback. I don't know if anybody else did, but I could hear myself echoing in my ear. Okay, well, I picked up a habit, also cooking. I haven't cooked this much in my life, actually. And it's just me. My kids are all grown up, and I'm, I got an empty nest. And just different foods, Pinterest, they got some wonderful recipes there. So just trying different things, stuffed mushrooms, and I mean, just good foods and healthy foods.
Good.
So, two things for me. Mamie, I'm with you on Netflix. I think I've watched. I'm caught up. I'll just say that. I was excited that one of my shows, season 5, started yesterday. So, but as far as cooking, a couple of you mentioned cooking. I am one of 6. My folks had 6 kids, and so for the holidays, we tend to potluck. And so these past couple of holidays, I've taken on some of that stuff for my family here at home that normally would be everybody bring something. I'm fortunate enough that this Easter, I have a 13-year-old who was willing to step in the kitchen with me. And she took on a couple of things, which I'm kind of excited about. So those have been my good things that have come out of this, I guess.
So I'm taking notes. So when this pandemic's over, Lori, Rashonda, Ann, I'm coming to your house because I don't cook. So set an extra place. I'm coming.
You're more than welcome.
I love it. Thank you.
And we got fresh mushrooms. We're using
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
herbs. We got,
Yeah.
well, Pinterest recipes. Yeah,
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Sharita, I'm in on all that. So
Me too.
all right, Andrea, go for it. Oh,
I think Andrea's frozen.
I think she's frozen. All right. So let's try this.
Okay,
So
move it.
what do you think you all have learned about yourselves over the last 12 months?
Hmm.
So
that's a tough
I already knew that I like spending time by myself. I'm a extrovert, introvert, what they say. And I've come to accept it and I appreciate it. And, one of the things I'm not looking forward to is when the world opens back up and all of the socialization comes back, the demands on your calendar and your schedule to always be somewhere. I'm kind of enjoying the slow motion. So hopefully I can maintain a bit of that when we open back up.
Cherie, that's funny you say that. I was talking to someone the other day and I said, with this pandemic, I'm getting to the point now. I don't know if I want to be bothered with anybody. It's nice to not have to host a holiday or, be in a rush to get dinner on the table for family members. So not being selfish, but it's been nice.
It's been nice.
Yeah.
See, and I'm totally opposite. I learned that I don't want to be, I like to socialize. I'm the social butterfly. And I miss my family. I miss gathering. I miss the barbecues and I miss the birthday parties and Mother's Day dinners. And, I miss my family. I really do. And I used to, when you have them around all the time, you're like, oh, you get tired of your family. But when you're away from them and you're not hanging out and socializing, I miss my family, So I learned that now I'll never say I'm tired of my family, I just want a break. I need my family.
And I'm an extrovert as well. But what I did learn was spending time alone would not kill me. So, yeah, I like people. I like a lot of people. I like to move in a lot of different circles. And 2 days by myself, I thought would cause me to jump in Lake Michigan, but I survived. So, I'm resilient. But on another note, I'm glad to know that, I've been a shop steward and I kind of go through the motions. I've regained strength in understanding and knowing that people need my assistance. And so that has regenerated a whole birth of my ambition to help my coworkers and to help people that are struggling through different things. And that is one of the things that I'm going to come out of this, knowing that my help really does matter and it's important. And I really love what I do.
Awesome.
That's great. So I've got one more question for you, and then we're going to see if we have any in the Q&A that we can throw out there. But so what do you think that being a member of the union, how do you think that helped you over the course of the last year?
Wow. Where do we start?
Yeah, right. You go first.
There's no way. There's no way as a teacher that I could be where I am right now without the support of my union on so many levels. Not just being able to know they're bargaining my best interests, but also knowing that I have brothers and sisters I can reach out to for various needs that aren't necessarily just my delegate. Yeah, I don't know where I would be without them.
I'll say for me, working for a labor organization, I mean, labor is just a strong force anyway. But I was one that had contracted the virus, and working for a labor organization, to have that support behind me, you know, whether it be my directors or my president, you know, calling to check on me, you know, people, you know, reaching out, you know, to see if I needed anything, was really helpful. And even if I wasn't employed with a labor organization, I would truly want to be employed by an employer who is unionized, because you have that backing. You know, you don't have to worry about your job. You know, if you have to quarantine for 2 weeks or what have you, you know, you're secure in your job, and that helps you to heal. I mean, because who wants to be sick and then have to worry about, oh, am I going to have a job, you know, or am I going to get paid, how am I going to pay my bills, you know? So um it's just, you know, it's just awesome. It's an awesome force.
You know, I'd like to say that I have union blood, but I didn't realize how deep my union blood ran till COVID. I definitely have to send a shout out to our fearless president, Karen Kent. She is such an amazing woman. And now that we're celebrating women right here in this moment, and she deserves every accolade and show of support she can get. Before COVID turned into anything we knew it to be, she was on the phone, you know, deciding what health care, how long the union can give us health care so our members wouldn't suffer. We were organized committees to help people move from different avenues of health care. We were on the phone. We were calling our city council people. We were calling our members. We developed a circle to reach out to the people in our shop. And these things were put in place so fast, it would make your head spin. So if I had a testament to anything, it would definitely be to the union, to my union, Unite Here Local 1. And I'm just so proud. I'm overwhelmed with pride at being a member and being a person in a position where I can talk about my union. And I can go on and on and on. This can be another hour-long conversation. I'll give someone else the time to speak. But in ending, I wanted to just say that a lot of us know that there's this rapper DMX who is ill, who is sick from an overdose. And one of the things that another famous rapper came out and said was that as rappers, we need unions. That is a strong statement, because this rapper felt like DMX would not be in the condition that he was in if he had the solidarity that we have in our unions.
It helps.
Amen. Well, I am proud of my union, the painters union. I mean, they kicked butts. They made sure that we had everything we needed. If it was hand sanitizers or masks or whatever you needed, they will provide it. If you had a problem, they came out to the job site and, you know, they had it out with whoever they had to have it out with to make sure we were safe. The workers were safe. And also, they kicked in a short-term disability for us. For people that was off, they were giving them extra money per week. Um, they did so much for us. It was just unbelievable. We definitely have that solidarity, and during the pandemic, it was just out there strong, and people knew who to call, and and how to get whatever they needed. They kicked in and helped with COBRA payments. If you had to pay COBRA because you're not working and you don't have any medical insurance, you ran out of it, they kick in and pay that. And just I am so proud to be a union painter. I love my union.
If I can just briefly piggyback off of these ladies that just spoke, in the same with us being in the retail sector, our president, Steve Powell, was very instrumental in meeting with the governor to get PPE for the retail workers. I mean, we're in a time where people are scared, and we didn't work from home. We were out like you all, your reps or what have you. We were out there in the trenches with our members, and that made them feel good to see that we were out there with them. I mean, I talked to a colleague in St. Louis, and he's working from home. I'm like, really? To be out there and to show your members that you stand in solidarity with them, I think that makes them respect us even more. I mean, were we scared? Of course, we all were, but at the end of the day, we have to do what we have to do. So I just want to piggyback off of you all as well.
Thanks so much, Mamie. And we are running out of time, so we're going to take the opportunity quickly to transition to one of the questions that we received from the chat. So the question is coming from Sarah Lyons out of Unite Here. The question is, what's one thing that you are most proud of that you or your organization accomplished despite the challenges of COVID?
I guess kind of what we just talked about,
Solidarity.
Solidarity, showing them that
Solidarity.
we care about them, and standing together, standing strong, because we're dealing with something none of us have ever dealt with before, and it was very trying.
Well, that's a segue for me to talk about our new administration. A lot of Unite Here members went to different parts of the country to help President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris get in the office. Me, myself, I went to Florida, to Miami to work on that campaign. But then we also went to Georgia to help win those Senate seats. And that became single-handedly one of the most important things that I've done in my life, helping change this administration to bring relief and finances and healthcare to so many people across this country. And that will be my number one COVID story.
So much has been done. Thank you.
So I can take the opportunity to wrap us up. Thank you so much to everybody for your participation in the panel. I know we've had a number of technology issues. I think that just all is going to make us all remember, get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine, so we can get all each other in person. So as we wrap up today, on behalf of CFL President Bob Ryder, Secretary Treasurer Don Villar, Nora Kay, and myself, I want to extend our sincere thank you to all of our panelists who are here with us today. I know it's been a tough year on all of us, and it's really great to hear about your experiences, and it's helped us learn more and understand more what everyone's going through. Thank you again to Sharita, Carol, Mamie, Ann, Rashonda, and Lori. And thank you to all of us who tuned in today to join and listen to the stories from the movement. We hope that we get to see you all in person very soon, and especially at our women's event next year. So with that, have a good night, stay safe, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, ladies.